Berlin, Germany. My name is Dietrich von Seggern. I'm CEO at Callas Software, and I'm also the Vice Chair of the PDF Association. And I'd like to talk to you today about archiving email and whether possibly archiving email as PDF makes sense or not. First, what we call a company slide, just a few words about my background. Callas Software is doing PDF-A technology. We're doing so since PDF-A came out in 2005. Our technology is included in our own products, but also in widely used products, for instance, from Adobe and from Foxit. And there, whenever you would use that software, you would use our PDF-A technology. That technology also includes capabilities to convert emails and Office files to PDF-A. And then, of course, it's available as a library so that it can be easily integrated into other applications. I want to use this slide also to talk about or to announce 2 more sessions that I will have during these PDF days. The one is Email to PDF reality show, where I will use that time to demonstrate more practically all the features that I will talk about today. So how would these features look in a real product? And then there is another session on the next day about, we have heard Elodie talking about PDF-A. That is also practical. So I will use real world files in both sessions to demonstrate how, and in the second session to demonstrate why PDF-A2 and PDF-A4 are maybe better than PDF-A, which is still most frequently used in archive. But back to email. First intro. Email archival in a nutshell. So I don't have to explain to you what email is. So it's, as we all know, it's essential for our business life. We use it for documenting discussions, for decisions, to announce, to agree on actions whatsoever. So we use it every day. And there are, for that reasons, many reasons to archive it. So there are business needs of organizations, industries, our customers, mostly insurances, banks, use it to archive and use our technology to archive emails so that everybody, not just the one who has received an email or sent it, everybody has access to it. And then there are also legal requirements. But in reality, archiving email is not common. Many companies don't archive email. Why is that so, and how can we overcome it? These are the major questions that I want to answer in my session today. Try to answer at least. And I will use, most of the content here is based on a recent paper that was published about EA-PDF, email archiving in PDF. The contents of this document had been developed by archivists and academics with support of the PDF Association. And I think this is, when looking at email, as I've said, I think there are still open questions when it comes to archiving email. And this paper gives many, many good answers to these questions. And that was why I thought, okay, let's use that paper and talk about this in a session at the PDF days. It's free, so you can download it right now. And the work for it has been funded by the NUW Mellon Foundation. And then that's not all. That was the paper is a result of phase 1. We are about to enter into phase 2 of the project. And major parts of that work will take place in the EA-PDF liaison working group hosted by the PDF Association. And that's in that second phase, we will develop a file format that might ultimately end up as an ISO subset standard similar to PDF-A. We want to develop implementer guidance and also proof of concept implementation. Now, before we really enter into this document and what is it about. I'd like to get some feedback or some information about you and your policy for email archiving. So it would be great if you could just answer these questions. So it's about really what your policy, your company's policy is when it comes to email archival, whether you do it at all and what file formats you would use. And I think I just move on with my presentation. So when we're looking at email, email is somewhat special. So PDF-A has resolved what I call the file format dilemma for all paper-like formats. So we've heard Elodie talking about PDF-A. So PDF-A has addressed the problem, the viewer problem, if you want. So I have a digital document, I want to put it into an archive. Then I need to make sure that I have in the future a proper viewer that can display what is in the file format. So a viewer that understands basically that file format. However, again, when we're looking at email, if emails are archived, very often companies use what they call the original email format for archiving. So then the question arises, so what actually is the email format? The EA-PDF paper says there's only one candidate, and I fully agree here. That is the EML format. The EML format is based on Internet RFC 5322, the Internet message format that specifies email communication. However, EA-PDF here also cites the Library of Congress that says there is no known specification that defines EML as a file format. So what the Internet message format is more a protocol. So it defines communication, but it doesn't define a file format that you can store on your disk or on your computer. And then EMF, the Internet message format, is limited to text emails. But email is much more. So email is not text, just text. It can be HTML, which still is kind of text. But then there is more information. You can encrypt emails. You can digitally sign emails. You can attach calendar invitations to your email files. And you can have other attachments. So by just using what companies call the original email format, you wouldn't resolve all these problems. And then it can be even worse. There are WinMail.dat files. And this is not from the EA-PDF paper. This is my personal experience. And actually, this email was sent to us by one of our customers. And it represents what they saw in their email client. So basically an email was received on Apple Mail where there was only one attachment, which was called WinMail.dat. Not much content, nothing that you could really do with that email. However, when you receive and look at that very same email with using Microsoft Outlook, there out of a sudden is lots of content and lots of information. Another example, and this is from my personal computer, from my email account. On the left-hand side, you see what I saw. There is in my Apple Mail just one attachment, which is called WinMail.dat. In Microsoft Outlook, on the other hand, you would see 3 attachments which have much more meaning, 2 PDF files and a CXF file. So that is much more helpful. So what is actually WinMail.dat? WinMail.dat is based on a format that is specified in the Transport Neutral Encapsulation format, TNEF, which has been published by Microsoft. It's proprietary, and it is an email attachment that can be interpreted by Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Exchange servers, and other Microsoft technology, and that encodes just special information. When looking at it from an archivist standpoint, this is not nice. You have to have a strategy how you would deal with this kind of attachments. So how can you archive such a TNEF file in order to be sure that you can read it and that you have proper viewer technology in the future? The only conclusion that EA, and then now we are back at EA PDF. The conclusion that the EA PDF paper makes is that you need to do some format conversion, you need to work with attachments, you need to have a strategy for calendar invites, so you need to have strategy for WinMail.dat files, so you need to address this, so you need to do some format conversion when you're putting your emails into the archive. And then if you're at that point, PDF actually makes a lot of sense. It doesn't require proprietary software, it's all around. And you have established and it is established as a general archiving standard. And you have conversion technology and conversion capabilities for many file formats to PDF that are all around. EA PDF goes even further. So now we have discussed the file format, but email, as I've said, is not just a file format. It's not just a file. Email is a communication. So email is not a regular document. It's a form of communication. And that means email is better understood in context. So an email might be a reply, an email might have been sent to various recipients. So you may want to understand email and to look at a particular email from a mailbox or a folder view. And so we don't just have to look as email as one file, as a format of one email. You also want to look at an email as, or what file formats are around to represent emails as part of a folder or a mailbox. And there are just two candidates. We have PST files, which again are from the Microsoft world, fully documented, but again proprietary, and can only be opened by Microsoft software. And then you have Mbox, which is again according to EA PDF documented, but only loosely documented in another RFC, and there is no application that would be able to open all Mbox files from all email clients. So one email client A may use a file with a file extension Mbox, but email client B has the same file extension Mbox, but email client A can't open the Mbox file from the other client. And even worse, from an archivist standpoint, so if you would use one of these two in your archive and you would later on open them in an email client to get access to what you have been archived, they would change in that very moment. In that very moment when they are opened, they are changed. Because an email client is not developed as an archival tool. It's a tool that allows you to work with email, as we all know. And then EA PDF says, okay, we not just need a file format for archiving email, where we could use PDF. We could also use PDF as a container for other files. So PDF in EA PDF has two roles. One is the very one email format, but also the container for email folders or even mailboxes. And this is just an example how that might look like. So I've just used one folder on my computer in my email program where emails related to the kickoff meeting of the EA-PDF group we're sitting together, and then I have archived them, meaning I've converted them into a PDF file and then put these PDF files into a container PDF. And since there were only 4 emails in that folder, I could even have a nice overview PDF file. So this slide should just show how that might look like in the end. So I have my container here. I can click on one email representation. I will see an embedded PDF file with all the contents of that email. And then I even have an EML file attached to that PDF file that I could also open, which would then open in an email client. So I have 2 levels of embedded files here. These already is the most important information that I think or that I want you to understand that is present or written down in the EA-PDF specification. In a second part, that specification goes into further detail. There is a functional specification with more detailed requirements for archiving email and PDF. And that will also be the basis for even further detailed specification that will take place in phase 2. So, and I would want to use the rest of my time in order to go one level deeper in details and have a closer look at these functional specifications. In order to do so, we first need to understand the inner structure of the email format itself. First, there is a header, basically metadata. So what is the originator of the email? Who is the recipient of the email? What is the destination? And some information that is gathered on the way from the email through the internet to the recipient. Metadata, and then on the other hand, we have the more interesting part from a user point of view of an email, the bodies. In the bodies, there you have the real content. You might have ASCII encoded information or layout information with an RTF or HTML. So 3 kinds of text you may use with an increasing level of design capabilities. And it's important to understand that you could have various bodies in parallel. So if the recipient email client can't understand HTML, it would go back and fall back to ASCII, for instance, if that is also present. Back to EA-PDF. EA-PDF says when it comes to the header information, when it comes to the metadata, you would want to have all of that information present in your email file. So when you convert one email into PDF, you should embed all the header field information into the PDF file as metadata. And on the package level, on the container level, you would want to add additional metadata. There are schemas around like premise that are used by the archivist community, so that define what fields you might want to use for these descriptive metadata. In the following slides, I've also used some buttons here to indicate just really my personal assessment, how straightforward I believe it will be to implement this into real software. And for these 2 requirements, I think that is easy. It's more or less straightforward to just add metadata into PDF files, so that is easily doable. The body is a more interesting part here. To create a PDF representation from my email, it could be EML, or another client could also give me MSG. Microsoft Word uses MSG as a file format. you would need to have a conversion from these file formats into PDF. That is not easy or really straightforward, so it's not one-to-one. On the other hand, there are softwares around, there are various solutions for it. So I would say it's more or less straightforward still. EAPDF also says there needs to be an EML representation, so that there is still an EML file embedded to my PDF representation. And there I say, okay, that might have to be rediscussed because, as I've said, I mean, if your original email was EML, then it's easy. Then just you embed the original email. However, if your original email was EML with embedded WinMail.dat or with another, with an iCal or so, or if it was an MSG file, then that is more problematic. And if you, in that case, you would have to have not just the email to PDF conversion, you would also have to have an MSG to EML conversion. So that's for the body parts. But I think in summary, so creating a PDF file and embedding the original email, that would be easy. But then you would possibly end up with an MSG file and embed it into the PDF file. PDFA, the PDFA requirement is only a should here because EAPDF says fonts are not needed to represent a simple text email. That is true. On the other hand, that is not true for other emails. It's not true for if you have Asian fonts being used, Asian letters being used in email. So I think that again is questionable. So whether fonts need to be embedded or not, at least deserves a second thought, in my opinion. Okay, then EAPDF defines the core representation of the email. It should meet user experiences. You would need to see one or more message body parts. And the message body should also support rich formats like HTML, and you would want to see recipients and senders' emails addresses. So and yeah, we can easily think that, or we can easily see that that is doable. And I even have a screenshot here, so that is not difficult. Third, we are at the attachments level. All attachments need to be included as embedded files. I think that is a no-brainer. Yes, you would want to have that. But I would also add, from an archivist standpoint, you would want to convert your attachments to PDF or better to PDFA if at all possible. I mean, I think that is what happens in archives all the time, that digital documents are converted to PDFA. Yeah, and then back, you would also want not just a one-to-one conversion, you should also at that point take care of WinMail.dat files or of iCal attachments, so at least that you have some representation that shows you what is inside of your iCal file. Fourth, we are at the container level, at the package level, so where you embed various single emails into container. Then, of course, it should be easy to extract them from there, and the container in EAPDF should be digitally signed. That, again, is easily achievable. And then there are two more requirements, and in my experience, unfortunately, these are not solved today, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing solutions for it. That is the email collection should allow you to search for emails, so using metadata fields, so show me all emails in my email package where the sender is Duff Johnson from the PDF Association, for instance. Or free text search. I'm not aware of a solution that allows me to search in a PDF file including its attachments. And then even better, it would be nice if it would be possible to sort and filter emails in a package by metadata fields. Ready for a summary. So EA PDF's requirements, I think on the file format level, we don't really have problems here. So it's easy, or there is software around that allows you to convert emails to PDF. You need to take care of special attachments like WinMail files, calendar invites, and so forth. But in the end, that is all doable. You have to give a second thought on converting an MSG email to EML, which is not as easily achievable, but there's not really problems. On the package level, there aren't any problems in creating that packages, I believe, but the retrieval, you would have to think about and search for proper solutions that allow you to search and to sort emails in a package. So now, if you're still here, if you're interested in this project and next steps, it would be great to see you and meet you in the EA PDF LWG that is just about to kick off. So you can already see it, as you can see here, on the website of the PDF Association. If you're interested and if you're a member of the PDF Association, you may just use the member area to subscribe to that LWG. If you're not a member and if you're an expert in email, you're invited to also join. Then please just write an email to info@pfa.org. If you have any other questions, just let me know. I'm here. We are just 30 minutes after we started the presentation, so we are just right in time. And now it's your turn to let me know whether I have left any questions open to you.
Thank you, Dietrich. So as a reminder to attendees, you can download Dietrich's slides from today's presentation from the handouts panel. We're now going to begin answering questions submitted during today's presentation, and you can still submit questions to Dietrich through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. So let's see, first question here. What do you recommend if an email is attached in an email? So I guess an email containing an email. It's an interesting problem.
It's interesting, definitely, yes. But then, I mean, basically you would do the same as if you have, let's say, a Word file or an Excel spreadsheet attached to an email. You would, in my opinion, you should convert that attachment into PDF. And if the attachment is an email file, you should also convert that into PDF, or in my opinion, better PDFA. And so on. I mean, if that email attachment again have another attachment, then you would have to do the same for that email. And I mean, in the end, the question is really good because that also raises the question how to visualize that in a viewer. And that I think that is really a good question that needs to be resolved once we have that EA PDF file format.
Okay. Questions are coming in thick and fast, Dietrich, so hold on. So how will EA PDF support animations that commonly occur in HTML emails?
There is no good support for that. I mean, that is with all animations, actually, when it comes to PDFA. PDFA has limitations there. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
Yep. Understood. Do you think that EA PDF could become an ISO standard?
I would think so. I mean, this really depends on the next phase of the project. So I'm very much looking forward to it. So it's going to be very interesting how far we can get there. But if we are able to get there, if we are able to find good solutions and agreements on all the open points, I think so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's going to be a conformance level in PDFA whatsoever. I mean, we need to find out.
Yep.
But I think,
So,
again, sorry, I think it's important enough. So I think email is so much around, there is not a good solution for archiving it.
right. So we have a question from the one of the co-chair of the new EA-PDF liaison working group, who asks, as a representative of the Phase 2 grant, what input and work would be most helpful from the archives and records management community whom he represents? This is Chris
Oh,
Prom.
yeah, I know. I think the output of phase 1 is the best thing you could have done. So I think you've just raised the right questions, and it's just for us together to find the good answers.
Mm-hmm. So another question actually from Chris's co-chair of the EA-PDF Liaison Working Group, Peter Wyatt, our CTO. How big will EA-PDFs get?
Yeah, that is a really very good question, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, as you know, I mean, if I have a full mailbox that I'm going to archive, they are fairly big. There are no limitations in the new formats. So PDF 2.0 doesn't have any limitations when it comes to file size. So from that standpoint, it's not a reason. There is no reason that they shouldn't get big. And the other point here is that everything in PDF can be compressed, and for embedded files, it usually will be compressed. Sorry, will be compressed. So technology-wise, I think everything is there to make them as small as possible. But yes, I mean, it's definitely something we need to find out and think about, because it's not just a file format. You would also want to have proper viewer capabilities. And there, I think we still have some limitations when it comes to very big PDF files with various embedded other PDFs.
So next question follows on from that one. How much will embedding fonts increase the file size of an EA-PDF?
Yeah. And that of course really depends. I mean, if it's Asian font, I mean, you would usually use subsetting. It will be a couple of 100K more or less, around that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, next question. Would you recommend embedding the original email itself into the PDF container?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. In our experience with emails converted to PDF, that gives, as long as you have a proper viewer, it gives you a way straight back into the email world. And at least as long as this email does still make sense, it's really back into where you're coming from. So I would think that makes a lot of sense, yes. I mean, similar to Word documents maybe, or Excel spreadsheets, there it also may make sense to embed the original Excel spreadsheet into your PDFA rendering that is used for archiving. And the same applies here.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds from your presentation that all the main issues will be with search and retrieval. In other words, with the EA PDF viewer. Are there non-PDF technologies that we might consider for integrated search and retrieval of large PDF files or groups of files?
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you think about a viewer for an EA PDF package, you would want to use indexing and search tools that are around. So you wouldn't. Yeah, of course, you would look at other software too, but these are technologies that then would have to be integrated with PDF viewer capabilities. So I think you definitely have to look at them, but not as an alternative, but as a complementary thing to look at.
Yep. Yep. So, okay. Next question here. What would be the best way to archive an email with attachments in this context?
Yeah, in my opinion, that will be again work on more than just one level. So an email with attachment should, in my point of view, end up as a PDF-A file with attachments. And then all attachments, whenever possible, should also be converted to PDF-A. And it's up to the archivist, or it should be decided whether you then still want to also archive the original file format for any attachments that you have. So of course that all adds to the file size. On the other hand, it gives you more complete archive files.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the new EA-PDF liaison working group. When's the first meeting of that group?
I think that question goes to you.
Well, I will have to. Yes, the new LWG has just literally gone on the website today, and members should sign up for it, as you mentioned, and I think we'll get to figuring out when the first meeting will be in a matter of in a few weeks anyway, not very long.
Cool.
Great. I think those are all of our questions, Dietrich. So thank you so much for your time and for that great presentation.